This is Allegedly in Alberta, powered by Streamlabs Talkstudio, focusing on politics, persuasion, and the pursuit of power.
We said in the earlier posts, we are the fill-in for Nate and the Breakdown, and we wish them all the best. You see right now we're repping them. You can get your own breakdown merch available at the official website at UCPOLICE and the category /the-breakdown-AB. Partial proceeds from every sale going to the legal fund. And of course, direct donation to the legal fund at savethebreakdownab.ca. So we can't replace Nate, of course, because, well, we're not Nate. We're not the Breakdown. We're allegedly in Alberta, and we welcome you, and thanks for joining us. And hopefully we can have a great chat. We did not post the link to our studio, but we're going to post that right now in our chat. So if you want to join us, feel free to click on that link and fire away. We'll have open forum conversation. And tonight's topic, the UCP police. So why are we talking about the police? Well, it's been interesting that we've been covering this since, well, we've been fighting the UCP since 2019, but we've been covering this particular topic since June of 2021. Which brings up the concern of the UCP's push to replace the federally funded and regulated RCMP with their own provincial police force. Private Bill 211, the Firearms Amendment Act, passed in April of this year with very little news on it. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not a huge fan of the RCMP and will continue to push to defund the police. However, I would rather the Mounties over a UCP-driven group of right-wing religious radicals armed with rifles and military equipment. Picture the thin blue line flag-waving wingnuts in the Edmonton Police Service, only 10 times worse. Yeah, so that was June 2021 when we made that post on TikTok, and we can see what's happening these days. So what you're looking at, and we've been going through some things, trying to get the information, and basically what we've seen is since 2021, there's been, probably before that, there's been a push for a provincial police force. So when we're following the steps there, of course, you always start with the actual information that's available, and that would be at the Alberta Government of Alberta website. So if you go and click on that, and I don't know how many people are taking a look at that right now, but we are just going to share the screen here just so you can see what we're looking at. And there we go. And it's on the stream here. Click there. So provincial police service engagement. And that's what you get when you basically when you look up provincial police force in Alberta. If we go down the overview, we're studying the potential transition to an Alberta provincial police service. We held virtual stakeholder engagement sessions in fall of 2021 and held additional in-person meetings in 2022. If you look here on the right, the timeline is not open, but the results are under review. So when we look at Get Informed, you click on any of these links, and the documents are based on the Price Waterhouse Canada's fair deal panel that Kenny set up back in October of 2020. Nothing in the webinar, same thing. You can go, the links in the show notes. You can go to that and check it out. They're not very interesting at all. However, none of this information has been updated to reflect the current changes. And what we're talking about when current changes is, if you haven't been paying attention, there's been a big increase in the request for the provincial police. And so we went and looked up the actual timeline of when this stuff started. So like we showed you that we did a video back in June of 2021. And that one was basically saying that during the pandemic, then Premier Jason Kenney worked with his ministers, pushed through a record number of bills under the Emergency Act, and made the initial changes for the UCP under the Police Act. So with those changes, that's when we started to see the ball moving towards the provincial police force. But there was a lot of, not misinformation per se, but there was a lot of confusion, because as we've seen recently, the UCP government, Premier Danielle Smith, Minister Ellis, they don't come forth with the information quite quickly, and they're not forthright and very non-transparent. So we had to go and do some investigating. And when we looked at it, there's actual a timeline, and the good and bad for us. Bad that it's happening in our province, but the good is we're based in Lacombe. So we have access, or we have the knowledge of the Lacombe Police Force and the Lacombe Police Commission. So just going over some notes there and figuring things out, because when we did the post in June of 2021, we did another post on Twitter showing what we came across, because we came across some very interesting information that we don't think a lot of the public had seen. But before we go to that, we'll look at the whole aspect of why the provincial police force why most people don't want the provincial police force. And Trevor Robb from the Edmonton Journal, from an article of February of 2021, and talking to the Reeve of Ponoka County and president of the Rural Municipalities of Alberta, and looking at these sort of things. And at the time, Jason Kenney was the demand for fairness, more Alberta, less Ottawa, very similar aspect to what Premier Smith is spouting out currently. They go on to talk about that fair panel. And then it says the police funding today. So Alberta currently pays $262.4 million for its RCMP service, with the federal government paying $112.4 million. We're not going to get caught up in the numbers. We do have the links to these articles for you to go into them deeper. We're just going to touch on some of the points here. And the biggest point that was given, and why we're talking about that in 2025, Dr. Laura Huey, a criminologist and associate professor of sociology at the University of Western Ontario, says they're much larger or more established services, which make comparisons difficult. She points to the recent formation of the Surrey Police Service as a more recent example, and one that highlights just how difficult it is to start a police force from scratch. She estimates The cost of establishing a police force in Alberta is likely to be in the billions. I don't know about you guys, but I have not heard one word from Premier Smith or Minister Ellis or any of those talking about billions. We talk about, oh, this is going to protect things. We talk about all these different things, but we don't talk about billions. So when we're talking about the cost of a provincial police force, it's in billions, not millions, not the hundreds of millions, but billions. So it's not just regular routine policing. It's all those special units, training, staffing for all those special units, says Dr. Huey. It's going to cost a ton of money just to start it up. And that's why the Ontario Provincial Police has $1 billion budget. They do everything. At the time, Jason Kenney pointed to the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary as an example Alberta can draw from. But Dr. Huey says Newfoundland's not a good comparison because the RCMP actually still polices most of the province's outlying regions. There's a debate whether or not they're even the provincial police service there, says Dr. Huey. In the end, it all comes down to cost versus control. Dr. Huey, basically, if you're going to pay more money, then you're going to want more control over how things are done. Goes in to describe a Pinto or a Cadillac and all those sort of things. At that time, it's no secret Alberta seeking greater autonomy from Ottawa. But that desire for autonomy comes with a cost, one that's likely to be passed down to taxpayers. The bottom line is this. All sounds fantastic in theory, but you have to pay for it. And if you're paying increased costs, where's that money coming from? It has to come from taxes. And because Alberta is a province that doesn't have provincial tax, it's got to come from other tax revenue sources. So yes, you're going to have autonomy, but that comes with cost. I'm not convinced necessarily people understand and appreciate how enormous those costs are. And like we said, they're in the billions. Archive photos of the Alberta Provincial Police Force operated in the province for a brief period from 1917 to 1932. The Fair Deal panel notes short-run costs could be absorbed by efficiencies of scale and scope. Very much like when we're talking budgets in other aspects with this government, that we can take from this, we can take from that, move dollars around, and it's not going to affect you, when we know ultimately it's going to affect you. Now, this is the most interesting part from Dr. Huey. With increased control comes the risk of politicization of the police. One advantage is provinces gain by employing the RCMPs. The RCMP is ultimately governed by the RCMP Act, not politicians. In Ontario, Premier Doug Ford's government drew accusations of political interference in the hiring process that resulted in Toronto Police Superintendent Ron Taverner being appointed head of the OPP. Taverner ultimately withdrew his name from consideration for the job, citing the controversy around his appointment and the need to protect the integrity of frontline OPP officers. One of the downsides of having provincial police service, and we saw that in Ontario, is that independence is not the same as the RCMP, said Dr. Huey. That insulation between politicians and police becomes less or finer when they're the ones making the decision on to who's going to be appointed to those positions, and that's the issue. So if Alberta wants to do this, one of the things the province needs to do is to make sure there's some thicker insulation between the politicians and the police, unless you want politicized policing. So I don't know about you folks, but I have seen very little insulation between the government and the presented provincial police. I mean, number one, there's been no actual declaration. There's been a lot of discussion, a lot of notes, a lot of news clips of Premier Daniel Smith saying about how we can utilize these forces and double down here, and it's going to save money ultimately, and all these sort of things. But I don't remember voting on a provincial police force. I remember a lot of people, when surveyed, were highly against that provincial police force. So for me, that's quite concerning that the government that's not insulated from this potential provincial police force, and the provincial police force will report directly to the safety minister, who then reports directly to Danielle Smith. Again, very similar to what's happening in Alberta Health. Like we said in one of the clips earlier this week, that they can claim AHS is hard to deal with and AHS is making all these decisions, but Bill 26 incorporated our provincial healthcare system. So under that incorporation, all decisions are made by the health minister, in turn, the cabinet, and the premier. So when you're hearing from Adrienne Lagrange and Danielle Smith saying we've talked to AHS and AHS has done this and AHS has done that, newsflash, AHS isn't in control. The UCP government is in control, and they made it that way. Because the only way you can implement a privatization of the healthcare system is to ensure you have absolute control. So, comparing it to the police force is the concerning piece of the puzzle. So, when we're looking at the timeline of when this provincial police force came into effect, which it hasn't been in effect, or it hasn't been legalized, or any of these sorts of things. But there's been a lot of changes and a lot of bills and revisions on bills and on the Police Act and on the Community Safety Act that ensures that this provincial police force is going to come into effect at some point. Just every time the government goes back to work, which they're going back to work tomorrow, how quickly are they going to push another bill through? Because their track record has been pretty solid in ensuring the use of the majority government that they hold. Like we said, record number of bills put through during the pandemic, a number of undemocratic or totally against the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Bills 26, bills 33, 34, 22. Feel like I'm playing bingo here. But that's what they're doing. And it's like a giant shell game. I don't understand how we're just sitting here allowing this shell game to happen. We tried to come up with some different things. Right now, it's about keeping the conversation going. We can't allow anything to stop these conversations. So like we said, if you want to join the conversation live, feel free. You don't have to be on camera. You can just have straight audio. You click on the link. You don't need special software. All you need is a headset or your cell phone, whatever, and earbuds or whatever. Like it's a microphone and a camera. That's all you need. And you can join the conversation with us tonight. And we can chat more about where we're going, what you want to talk about. Feel free to add it in the chat as well. If you have questions, we are going to continue on with the timeline of this provincial police force, and we'll answer questions throughout. So the next article will pop up was from Red Deer News Now, or RD News Now. And that was on July 19th, 2021. And with that article, we had the announcement that Minister Madu was going to be hosting a series of rural crime town halls. The first one would take place on Tuesday, July 20th at the MD of Foothills. And then the second one would take place in Claire's home on July 21st. And then Cardston on the 22nd, and Redcliffe on the 22nd, Drumheller on the 23rd, High Level on the 27th, and finish it off in Grand Prairie on the 29th. Now, why are those dates so important? Well, I don't know if they're really important per se, but when we're looking at the minutes of the Lacombe the Lacombe Police Commission, and we go on to June 17th, 2021, and in the new business, is it the old business? Sorry, not the June. Apologize there. So we go into August. Sorry, again, we're jumping ahead here. So in August, and we'll share this tab here so you can see it, 0.7.31 is saying, and we'll see if we can zoom in here. Gotta love, close that. And we're looking at the August here. And on that aspect here, we see the 7.3 meeting with Minister Orr and Solicitor General Madu. So Minister Orr and Solicitor General Minister Madu will be attending Lacombe Police Services on August 25th, 2021 for a tour and roundtable discussion on justice and policing issues in our area. And they're saying Chair Gish not able to attend, and a couple of commissioners will be available in their presence. So why is that one so important? Like we said, that we posted something along those lines. So when we're looking at we've got the post where we're talking about the UCP and the pandemic. So let's go right here. July 20th, 2021. Mayor Grant Creasy, Lacombe Mayor, had a great afternoon at Smoky Trout Farms, enjoyed speaking with the Premier, the ministers, and Danielle Smith. So on July 20th, 2021, Danielle Smith was with Premier Jason Kenney and a number of ministers at Smoky Trout Farms. And why does Smoky Trout Farms matter? Well, we will share that. The Smoky Trout Farms, the business development manager is Ray Menard. Well, Ray Menard is the husband of one of the board members for the UCP caucus. And when we're looking at these things, we don't quite see why you'd want to go to Smoky Trout Farms. It's about picking up fish. It's not like a camping area or whatever. So it was just peculiar that they're meeting at Smoky Trout Farms and that Creasy and Smith do a selfie right outside the fish pond. So then we kick back to August 25th, 2021. So when we look at the document there that was saying it was August 19th, 2021, which was new business for the Police Commission of Lacombe, that they were announcing that this meeting was going to take place on the 25th. And UCP MLAs or Madu with Lacombe Mayor Creasy and the police chief, and also with members of the Police Commission. And they did a tour of the brand new Lacombe police station. And yeah, it seemed like it was an interesting visit for Ron Orr at the time. But yeah, that kind of sparked my I was interested. It was something was fishy about this. Like, why would they want to meet in Lacombe? And why such a quick transition? I know they were talking about the provincial police force, but nothing was documented. There was no, like, they're not in session at the time, so there's no bills coming through or anything like that. And why the heck is Danielle Smith there? Like, you got to look at it that this is just a few months after her dissertation that she wrote for the U of C about her political ideas if she was running the province. And a lot of those ideas that she had on there is what's implemented in the current UCP government, as well as the ideas presented by Take Back Alberta and the Black Hat Gang and various other individuals. So we're at August 25th. They had the meeting in Lacombe. There was the meeting at Smoky Trout Farm prior to that. The timeline starts to get a little more clearer. So when we're looking at the town halls, they hosted it in Karsten, they hosted it in all these different places, but he didn't host a town hall in Lacombe. There wasn't any sort of public consultation. There was a meeting with the chief of police, with the mayor, with the police commission, but it wasn't a town hall. I mean, we've got in Ponoka the RCMP, in Black Falls the RCMP, in Red Deer the RCMP, in Sylvan Lake the RCMP. So if you're going to host some sort of open house or a roundtable discussion, you would think you would have invited communities or members of the RCMP that would be directly affected by a provincial police force. But there's got to be a reason why you didn't do that. And we're looking at these things going, they still haven't come out and said there's going to be a provincial police force. There's just all the talks of what would happen if we had a provincial police force. And like we said, when we go back to the start of the program, when we showed you that document, when you go onto the government website, none of the documents have been updated, and the timeline is the results are still under review. So if there is a provincial police force, if they've got something in place, it hasn't been announced. It's not legal. But all the steps towards it are already put into place, starting with Jason Kenney, Ron Orr, Why is Ron Orr so important? Because Ron Orr is one of Danielle Smith's holders on from the Wild Rose Party. So when she was leader of the Wild Rose, Ron Orr was an MLA. So back to the timeline, of course, what's going to be, they're talking about, well, we can do all these things for the First Nations people and the Indigenous communities, because right now the RCMP aren't protecting the Indigenous communities, according to the government. I'm not speaking for the Indigenous communities. They might need the services of more police. That's up to them to decide that. But just like a lot of other things, it doesn't seem like the government was negotiating or making these decisions in good faith. So when we look at this article that was from the Alberta Native News, the Treaty 6 First Nations criticized a report to replace the RCMP with the Alberta Police Force. Well, if this is such a good idea and the Indigenous communities are all supporting it, why would they not want, why are they not happy with this? And this is from November of 2021. So this is after the visits from Madu. This is after the supposed in-person consultations. Like this says that they're public consultations that they did in 2022 or whatever they're talking about. Oh, in-person meetings in 2022. The in-person meetings weren't with the public. They were just with the local police services and the commissions. So the Fair Deal panel report came from consultation with tens of thousands of Albertans through in-person town hall meetings, online survey and stakeholder meetings. Final report was submitted to the Alberta government in May of 2020, explored fair allocations of federal funding, better representation in the House of Commons, creation of a provincial pension plan. Again, no one voted for Alberta's pension plan. And it states a provincial police force could potentially provide better services to Albertans, increase the number of frontline officers and civilian specialists, including mental health nurses and social workers, and lead to less transfer of officers in and out of communities. So the big claim of why they're going with the provincial police force is the fact that the RCMP are transient, that, oh, well, you don't have the same RCMP officers, that they can't build the rapport with the communities because they don't stay in the communities long enough. And they're looking at that point, it was $366 million, may take up to 6 years to complete. So very low estimates on what the cost was going to be. And the current model predicts the transition could increase the amount of police officers from 4,030 to 4,189, or a 3.8% increase. But that's based on the 366 million number that Madu, the justice minister at the time, was presenting. And said, at the end of the day, I'm confident that it would be the same amount or lower than what we currently spend on RCMP, but as a province, we do have a responsibility beyond the monetary implications to defend and pursue our province's best interest. While the challenges are not insignificant, we believe that a Made in Alberta provincial police service is worth serious consideration. So what does that mean is unclear to First Nation reservations within the province under the jurisdiction of the RCMP. On November 2nd, the Confederacy of the Treaty 6 First Nations released a scathing response to the report's release. The whole report was commissioned and paid for by the UCP without any discussion with First Nations in Alberta, said Grand Chief Greg Desjardins of the Confederacy. When the study was announced last year, the chiefs questioned the role of the report and its relation to the First Nations. If there's going to be different police force, the Confederacy of Treaty 6 First Nations want to reestablish our own fully equipped Treaty 6 force that will work with the nations within Treaty 6 territory. Our chiefs have already rejected the rollout of rapid rural Alberta provincial integrated defense. Our chiefs will not allow sheriffs, commercial vehicle enforcement, and fish and wildlife officers to come onto our federal reserved lands, and that includes an Alberta provincial police enforcement, said the Grand Chief. Alberta government is yet to make a decision regarding the possible transition, with Mr. Madu claiming his department will consult with First Nations, rural communities, crime watch groups, victim services, and others before any decisions have been made. And again, the consultations have happened. We're seeing this. We talked to all these people. Tens of thousands of Albertans were consulted. I'm not seeing a lot of consultation. All we're seeing is a lot of sound bites, a lot of reporting, a lot of, well, we haven't decided yet, but if we do, it's a really good idea and we should do it. So when we're looking at where they go from there, slightly after the Treaty 6 First Nations report came out, there was another report that was provided by an online survey, and it was through the Red Deer Advocate, I believe, with 70% of Albertans against the provincial police force. So 70% oppose replacing the Alberta RCMP, says National Police Federation. Results of an online survey shows 80% of Albertans remain satisfied with the RCMP policing, even as the UCP government pushes for a provincial police force, says the union representing the RCMP. National Police Federation said a recent Polera strategic insight survey of 1,221 Albertans conducted October 27th to November 4th revealed provincial police force does not help at all. Albertans couldn't be less interested in this proposal despite repeated attempts by Premier then Jason Kenney, now Danielle Smith, and others to make a case for a smaller, prohibitively costly, and untested provincial police service, said Brian Sauvé, Federation president, in a statement. And the provincial government maintains no extra expense would be incurred in making the switch to the Alberta Police Force, but experts are claiming it's going to be in the billions. The findings are there. They're looking at pay structure, and at the time, Premier Ed Stelmach signed a 20-year extension with the RCMP. So to get out of that, it's going to cost the provincial government a good amount of money. So when we're looking at that, why are these things so important right now in 2025? Because we haven't heard anything in the media, like outside of there's potential of the police force. Danielle Smith talks about how good the police force is. None of the government websites are showing. They're just showing engagement. They're not showing anything in regards to what this police force could be and what it entails and all these sort of things. Well, the interesting thing is the fact that Bill 11 came up. And we could go through Bill 11 from point to point, but we're not going to do that. We always tell people, like, all these documents can be found on the King's Printer, Alberta King's Printer orders in council. So we're not just pulling stats out of the sky or anything like that. So lots of amendments to the Police Act. So here's the ones that really stood out for us. So amendments to Section 1, by adding the following after clause. Independent agency police service means a police service established under Part 3-2. Oversight board means the Independent Agency Police Service Oversight Board established under Section 33.8. In Clause K, striking out "or" at the end of the subclause is a member of an independent agency police service. Oversight Board, Police Service, Oversight Board. Adding Oversight Board after commissions. So a lot of documentation, a lot of additional wording added to the end of commissions to an oversight board. Well, what the heck is an oversight board? Like, you have a justice minister, you have the police commissions. Like, what is going on here? Like, why is there this big thing about an oversight board? Well, let's kick it over to August 28th, 2024, when this order in council, signed off by Lieutenant Governor Lacani, Lieutenant Governor in Council appoints Brendan Miller as a member of the Law Enforcement Review Board for a term to expire on August 27th, 2027. Okay, that's, yeah, whatever. Someone's added to a board. That's not a big deal. Like, you see the order in council, like, those things happen all the time. Why is this so important? Well, the importance of that, if you go and Google Mr. Brendan Miller, why does that name sound so familiar? Well, it's quite simple here. When you Google Brendan Miller and Alberta, he is the special counsel for Foster LLP, but he's also the lawyer who represented the Freedom Convoy organizers and is now appointed to the Provincial Police Review Board. So the lawyer for the Freedom Convoy is going to be part of the overseeing of the police board. And the former police chief that was non-transparent and other actions while police chief in Edmonton is now responsible for the safety and the laws in the province. But what are they responsible for? So the Alberta Police Review Board, what does this do? Why is this police board an important aspect now? Because you've got your commissions, you've got all these different things. Why do we need a police board? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Well, it doesn't make sense unless you look at what is coming down the pipe starting on March 1st. So all these changes to Bill 11, all these changes to the Police Act, they're all coming into effect. They all got passed. They all had the royal assent. Everything was on the up and up. They all got everything done in November of last year. And if we go and look at this, and this is something that really doesn't make sense to me, but November 27th, the Lieutenant Governor Council orders that a proclamation issued proclaiming Section 3C of the Police Amendment Act 2022 in force on March 1st, 2025. So 6 days from now. So they're going to be in the ledge for 4 days, 3 days, 5 days. Who knows? And March 1st, this police act comes into effect. And what is this mean? The Police Governance Ministerial Regulation. And this is your police overseeing the police. Prescribed members of the Provincial Police Advisory Board. So the purpose, the following persons are prescribed members of the Provincial Police Advisory Board. 2 additional representation from 1 or more First Nations, 2 representatives from the Association of Rural Municipalities of Alberta, 2 representatives from the Association of Alberta Municipalities, 1 representation located in any of the 4 Royal Canadian Mounted Police districts in Alberta who's not a member of the RCMP. Any additional members, so as long as the total number of members of the Provincial Police Advisory Board does not exceed 15 members. Member of the Municipal Policing Committee shall not be a full-time member of the Municipal Policing Committee. Term of office of member appointed to the Municipal Policing Committee is 3 years, or a term of less than 3 years, but not less than 2 years. All members appointed to Municipal Policing Committee must pass an enhanced security check. The appointment of a member to a Municipal Policing Committee may not be revoked by council except for cause. If a person who is member of the council is also appointed as a member of the Municipal Policing Committee, this person's appointment to the Municipal Policing Committee terminates on the person ceasing to be a member of the council. As the purpose of the Regional Policing Committee, the Regional Policing Committee shall consist of at least 1 representative member from each municipality and as many other members as the relevant councils of municipalities agree. Municipal Policing Committee instead of Regional Policing Committee. For the purpose of Section 28.042 of the Act, the Minister may approve the council of a municipality described in the section establishing a Municipal Policing Committee instead of a Regional Policing Committee, consisting of not fewer than 3 members, not more than 7 members appointed by the council. So the regulation comes into force at the coming into force of sections 3E, 16, 19, 46A, 47B of the Police Amendment Act 2022, which again comes into full effect March 1st. Again, we have all the changes, we have all these things. We have discussions of, oh, it's going to be easy. We can just have sheriffs do this sort of thing. But there's no official announcement of a provincial police force. But everything is in play. Everything has been put into place with the perception that there's a provincial police force. So I'm not going to give you a personal experience. So in July of 2024, as I said, I live in Lacombe. We live close to one of the parks. When I was walking Curry at the park, which is with the ball diamonds, it also backs into the campground. While Curry and I were on the soccer field, we saw no less than 12 sheriff vehicles, peace officer vehicles, and Lacombe police cruisers drive through the park towards the campground and to the back road, which leads to the Federal Agriculture Center. I don't know about you, but in a community of less than 15,000 people, I don't see the need, or I don't think I've seen 15 vehicles all at once. I was part of the Lacombe Athletic Park Association when we hosted Gord Bamford's Canada Day at Emmy Global Athletic Park. And we had 12,000 people there. And we had police service from Lacombe. We had RCMP from Red Deer, Black Falls, Ponoka. And there wasn't 15 cruisers for 15,000 people or 12,000 people in one location. So why would there be 15 cruisers in a park, all driving the same way? It's just very crazy to me. Another interesting fact. So I take our kid to club in Red Deer. And so we drive through Black Falls and into Red Deer. And those days, I see more sheriff vehicles, more peace officers than I see RCMP officers in Black Falls and in Red Deer, on the highways or in town. In Lacombe, when I take our kid to school and we're coming back or just traveling around Lacombe, I'm lucky to see, outside of the officers in the resource officers in the schools, I'm lucky to see one Lacombe cruiser in town. I see multiple peace officers or sheriff vehicles, but Lacombe is its own municipal police force, and I can only see one Lacombe police officer. But there's multiple peace officers and multiple sheriff vehicles. But we don't have a provincial police force yet, right? That's right. Premier Daniel Smith has not come out and made it official. Minister Mike Ellis has not come out and made it official. But just because it's not official doesn't mean it's not there. March 1st is going to be the tell. It's going to be the test. When they come out on March 1st and the overseeing body, led by the guy who was the lawyer for the Freedom Convoy, overseeing the police in the province, RCMP, provincial police, local police, you name it. That's where we're at. So it's getting interesting here. The latest one that we've come across. So Lacombe had a police chief, longtime police chief, that had been working in Lacombe for years. He's recently announced his retirement. They recently announced his replacement, and it's a former police officer from Lethbridge. Well, the interesting thing is that former police officer, who's now the chief of police of Lacombe, number one, he's originally from Lacombe, so they're claiming it is like a coming home story. We're going to look into this a little more, but when we're looking through the minutes of the police commission in Lacombe, going to 2021, 2022, and 2023, it's all commission members or committee members all local or voted in. But in 2024, something interesting comes about. In 2024, there was an additional member added to the board, and it was a provincial appointed advisor to the Lacombe Police Commission. That provincial advisor is former Lacombe Mayor Steve Christie, longtime Conservative member, longtime Conservative supporter. And Steve Christie presents the commission knowing that they have to replace the outgoing chief, that can they send a offer to the person they hadn't named yet, who we find out is, again, a former staff sergeant in Lethbridge. Just interesting about that staff sergeant, he's a core member of the downtown cleanup committee and was part of the homeless encampment raids in Lethbridge last year. And that's who's going to be the chief of police for Lacombe. And on that group in Lethbridge was also Middleton Hope councillor and UCP candidate for Lethbridge, who was with part of the Lethbridge Police Service and worked directly with the current incoming chief of police for Lacombe. So we had Madu and Orr visiting Lacombe, lots of consultation with Lacombe. Lacombe is the only center in between Calgary and Edmonton that has a municipal police force. Everything else is protected and served by the RCMP. So there's the information. Do with it as you will. We'll look into more on that police side. We'll look into the health. We've been in contact with various reporters and stuff. And as you saw in the opening, the great turnout at Minister Lagrange's office for the protest, that we were at the very end of that protest. Great to meet some of the members of the protest, including Brad from PI Alberta. And speaking of Public Interest Alberta, they've got a conference coming up March 27th, 2025. It's going to take place at Barnett House in Edmonton. And you can get your tickets at pialberta.org/conference-2025, and we'll kick that one into the stream, and we'll also add it into the show notes afterwards. But if you are interested, Brad and the group at Public Interest Alberta are doing great things. He led the charge in Red Deer outside Lagrange's office, and then he headed right up to Edmonton to join the crew up at the Ledge, and great turnout there where the pink slip was. So great to see our fellow Albertans out. And we've got, and we'll post it later this week, we got some video of the protest here on Saturday. And yeah, you're going to have to get ready to plug your ears a bit because it's loud. There are a lot of horn honking as people are driving by the four corners outside of Lagrange's office. Albertans are not happy. I'm not happy, but I haven't been happy for a number of years. But a lot more people are understanding where we're at, and we can't continue to do this. We can't let this go away. We can't just have people be censored. We're authorized by the Alberta Accountability Alliance, abpoliceca@gmail.com. So all our messages, if you have a message you want to join us and you're scared of being whatever, we are very open to using our electoral third-party advertiser political third-party advertiser status to provide a voice for you and connect with us. Again, like and subscribe across the board. Follow us on Blue Sky at aballiance.ca. Always get that one mixed up. On X Twitter, we're still around. Not as active there because who wants to give Musk all the money? It's at AB_Poli. We are very active on our Substack now. You can visit our Substack, abpoli.substack.com. Subscribe to the free membership. Subscribe to the paid membership for access to some of the deep dives that we're going to be working on. And if you want to support us, you want to support the breakdown, visit our website, abpoli.ca, shop the Team Canada collection, shop the breakdown collection. Nate the Breakdown needs your help. Again, donate if you can. Connect with us if you can. Looking forward to everyone seeing you all soon, having you guys on, being a part of Allegedly in Alberta. Hopefully we did justice for Nate and the Breakdown. Hopefully you guys at least had something to watch in the giant hole that was lost with the censorship. And we'll see you guys next week.